let me ask the audience if there are questions. We have roving microphones, and we're keen to hear from you. Turn the lights up. Stick your hand up if there are any questions. Question down here. If the microphone is on the way. Third from the end in that row, yes.
I've heard everybody talking now, and one thing I've sort of taken on board here is reinventing the wheel. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I think we did pretty all right back then, and we had pretty hard rules to follow. We also had communities that came together. We had Christianity, we had churches, we had youth groups. You know, we had communities that knew communities, and I grew up in a community that I thought was wonderful, and I still go back to that community today as not just a mother of 5, but I'm a grandmother of 23 and a great-grandmother of 2. And I have been exceptionally blessed.
Busy.
No. One thing I taught my children was when they became parents, they had responsibility. I'm the grandmother, and I teach my grandchildren the rules that I grew up with. And we are always in contact. Now, what has happened, I believe, we do have to reinvent that wheel. We have to say, we have experts in every single field. Why are we not pulling them together? This was said in 2004 in the first Youth Justice Conference by Andrew Beecroft, and I've been waiting to see it happen. So I'm here again, and I'm just an individual hoping and praying that we can come together without the governmental areas interfering. We are a community. We need businesses because the children from yesteryear are business people today. And our children in the middle are suffering from people that have closed ears and closed hearts. What are we going to do? Are we going to stop and just listen to the talk again? Or are we going to become very active and enjoy, like I do, the 23 grandchildren who are being loved and cared for? And they all are different, but they all have strengths. And they are going to be wonderful people. I hope I can endear this again in 10 years' time. Good luck, and I wish to be part of it. Thank you.
It's a fair point. I mean, things have changed. We live in a more atomised society now. Whether it's possible to recreate something that does seem to have gone, I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think we have no option. As Dr. Irene has said, there's a famous cartoon, so it's an image that happened after the death of James Whakaruru. There's a picture of James in the coffin, and there's James's parents, and there's the neighbours of James, and then there's the family and the community that knew James, and of course it's 2, 10, 500, and then there's a group of professionals, doctors, nurses, and the policemen. And in the report, they were blamed for James's death, but actually, the picture is, there's 120 people in that diagram, and everyone could have had a role to play. So yeah, we can build our services and we can connect and we can do wonderful things, but ultimately, it's parents, it's the people that know parents and are supporting parents, it's the people that are around us that are going to make a difference for our children. By the time we get to social workers and police, it's far too late. So my answer is I don't think we have a choice.
And that is exactly what you're saying, really, that we as communities have to take control. There's a hand up over there. Yes, sir. Microphone's on the way,
Sorry.
I think.
Sorry, I had the mic. So I was asked my question. Hello, I'm David. My question touches on what Ms. Cribb and Dr. Freeth talked about, and obviously changing business to be more moral and ethical. I mean, that's great, but it is voluntary. And so I wonder what you think about, well, you talk about the leadership of business, but what about, obviously, the leadership of the state here? So I wonder what you think about, well, do we need a more active role of the state in terms of more active expectations or indeed a regulation so that all businesses need to give regard to the needs of the community that they are in? Because I think we agree it's not going to be good enough to keep morally appealing to an already enlightened minority of business, that's not going to get the change that we need. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
That's right, you need to be forced to be good, all of you.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, you know, as a business person and one who believes in markets, I'm not keen on regulation or coercion really at all. But I think a couple of things are happening. I think first is that there is a greater consciousness about where people want to invest, first up, and who people want to be customers of. I think that's an issue. More importantly, I think the world, and I'm sorry, apart from these lovely young children in the front, we're all too old. We're not going to have a choice. The power of social media and the ability for groups to decide they don't like the stance of a company or the stance of an organisation and to do something about that is becoming very huge. And we've just seen whole governments collapse as a result of it. We've seen a huge movement against Amazon and PayPal over the WikiLeaks issue, where youth or people around the world decided denial of service attacks will shut them down because we don't like their policies. So I think there's a whole different movement coming, and I think it's better that organisations and people, a number of you will be shareholders, will speak up and say, actually, we agree with organisations doing these things. I think if you keep setting rules, people react, badly to them. I don't know.
Who was first? That gentleman over there has been stoic with his hand
Kia
up.
ora.
Yes.
It's a woman.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
It's
see
okay.
you.
It's okay. Kia ora. Recently I've been working with Pacifica people, young people, rangatahi, and the more I work with Pacifica, the more I feel so palangi. And I think that one of the things that I've realized is that just how diverse the Pacifica community is. And it's actually solutions for the community, by the community, that need to be supported. Because it's not just, the Samoan culture, but it's the Cook Island Church, the Tokolo Church, it's the Fijian Church. It's not only just one Fijian church, but it's probably a Fijian temple and a mosque. And so I think that two things I'd like to have people comment on is, one, the importance of the solutions coming from those communities themselves. This government is obsessed with numbers and has no concept of quality of program. They just look at what numbers get cranked out. And I think that that's a major problem. I completely support research. I think that we need to have more policy based on research, but we don't need to just count simple numbers. Kia ora.
Shall I speak to the first
Please
one?
do.
And someone else may want to speak in the second. So this, so looking at the matter of solutions from the communities, absolutely. Whether it's from the grandmother of a couple of rugby teams, or from our diverse Pacifica communities, or our Dutch community, or some of our beautiful Asian communities as well. I think of, if I want to answer the second part of that first question of what are the things that make them work, I recently finished an initiative with Tokoroa, which some of you may know is naming itself as the Pacific capital of the world, and has a very strong Cook Islands community there. Now what Tokoroa decided was that rather than shutting down after the timber industry collapsed there, they were actually going to rebuild the community from the children up. And so they, the Pacific community there, strong in Cook Islands, like I say, decided to take on early childhood education, needing quality early childhood teachers. I went to a conference one day and I found Mama Mi'i Diokatai sitting in the foyer, and I couldn't get into the conference without going past Mi'i. And Mi'i's request was, come to Tokoroa and teach our people how to be great early childhood teachers. And one of the features that has made this work is that there was, what do we call it? In business you call it a sponsor. There's somebody who sees it, believes it, and won't let go. So Mi'i would come to the classes that we ran there. Mi'i knew everybody's needs and was doing all the informal pastoral stuff, as well as making sure that there was the opportunity for academic success in there. She was solutions focused all the time, and then we all became solutions focused too. Another key part of it was having alliances, so we worked with Te Wānanga Aotearoa there. Mi'i sought an alliance. The local mayor, the community came on board as well. And the third thing was the actual students themselves. They caught hold of the vision, they believed in it. And beyond the summers, they went through the winters to see through the commitment, because it wasn't what we were saying from the university or what the government was saying. It was what the community needed, and that gave them the resilience to keep going.
As for the second point on the research and the number counting rather than the qualitative assessment, I'm not sure whether that rings any bells with you.
It gets us into the really complex issues around contract management, and what we've known over the last 20 years is that we have done a fairly shocking job and driven a whole lot of unintended consequences where we've pitted organisations against each other and absolutely made it very difficult to collaborate, and driven a mentality where you have to grab the person in front of you and don't let them go, don't let your clients go because they're part of your funding. It's driven a whole lot of patch protection and driven a whole lot of organisational ethos.
Is that changing?
There are, well, we talk a lot about how it's changing, and a lot of things have been done to try, but basically we're talking about a very different way of thinking. We're kind of caught between two worlds, because as everybody in this room will know, that it's actually spending taxpayers' dollars, so we all need to know that it's making a difference for the children and the people there. So whatever we're going to do, we have to be able to tell that story and understand it. We can't get away from that. We all want to know. But at the same time, we also have to ensure the services are able to do it. So a lot of the thinking at the moment is about tight, loose, tight. So let's be really tight about what we want to happen, what we want the outcome from the services. Let's free up a bit more about how it's done and who works together. And then let's be really tight about a conversation about whether it worked or not. So it's a very different way of thinking about contracting, and there are some models in place that we're trying to do it. But again, we've driven a whole behaviour pattern, and it's going to be really hard to unpick that and build trust between organisations and build that kind of a relationship between government and NGO sector again that is trustworthy rather than based on a whole lot of paper. So I think we're starting the journey, but we've got a long way to go. But we've got to get it right, because it's all about kids, really. It's all about families.
Look, I thought it was great when you talked, Jo, especially about health, about literacy and employment. But there are also some links about income that aren't made, and about the role of business in income maintenance and in fair incomes. And I put this in the context of one of the worst disputes at the moment that we could face, and that is the Tallies dispute, where there are 1,400 workers in Maori communities, mainly Maori communities, in very vulnerable parts of New Zealand, and there are thousands of kids there. And look, I don't think we're going to solve the Tallies dispute tonight. It's much bigger than that, and Alan won't comment on that, but he might be better on the board than some of the people on the board are. But, what's the role of employers about fair incomes? Because 2 out of every 5 children in poverty come from low-waged, very low-waged family, and they're living low-waged family incomes. So, what's the role of employers in relation to fair incomes and good working conditions?
You're the man.
Looking right at me.
And I am referring to the Business New Zealand election manifesto once again. Employment relations, they say. Important to have more freedom and flexibility in employment law. Oh, is that code for something, I wonder? I mean, it's a fair question. We can wax on about how we're all in it together and business cares about the blah, blah, blah. But when you see a dispute like that, then all the greenwash goes out the window, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I don't actually fully know the basis of that dispute, but I can guess. But I think once you've reached that point, you're in real trouble.
Who's in real trouble?
Oh, everybody. I mean, but particularly the company. If you've got that type of breakdown, and you know, we have certainly both at Rights and earlier and at Telstra Clear have issues where we've had those types of, not as bad as that, but we've had differences of opinion that we've had to find ways to resolve it through. I think when you say fair income, and I'm not quite sure even myself how to define that, and what point is relative, but what I certainly do know is that without doubt it's our job to have good conditions and look after people, and do that without any discrimination across anywhere, gender, whatever it is, and to make sure that we recognise that people have lives to do. And even as recently as today, we've just moved 90 people out of a building because we've just been told in Wellington it's below earthquake standards. So, you know, that's a very easy decision for us. We're just not going to risk it. When it comes to fair income, I'm with you. I think people should be paid and rewarded for the roles they do and for their own performance. And because I'm a sort of business market person, I think people should have that reward on an individual basis if they do very well. So what we try to do is we try to stick with principles. So we've spent a lot of time ensuring, for example, that there is no discrimination against gender in the Telstra, and Telstra is, like the Australian counterpart, is very strong supporter of diversity in the workforce and recognising that. We try to have open, honest conversations about what we think is fair for the company and what we think is fair for the employees or the staff. I'll just make one other comment. It's really interesting moving from a company like Wrightson, where the average age is about 55, 60, to a company like Telstra Clear, where it's about 35 years younger, and it's generation, whatever the generation we're on to now, I'm not sure which, where the expectations are just hugely different. You know, the expectations of this workforce is they expect a company to do certain things. They also expect a company to be doing good things, and they want them to do things for their family, which is why we are so involved in youth and community, because our staff are asking for that and wanting to work for that. And what was fascinating, just as a very brief aside about the recent global financial crisis, is I had a huge number of people coming to me and saying, "What's a recession like?" You know, because I've never been in one. And I was saying, well, it's going to get tough, you know, because these were 20-year-olds, 29-year-olds, 30, you know, I've never been in a recession. So I think the basis of it is communication, is recognising the risks both sides. But I mean, I just look at that type of dispute and say there's only a set of people suffering, you know, and it just isn't good for anybody. I'm not sure if it answers the question.
No, it was well evaded though.
No, I thought so. Yeah. See, I knew that.
No, it was good. It was good. But, well, okay. Should we have a minimum wage in New Zealand?
We have got one.
I know. Should we have it? Or should we get rid of it?
No, I think we should.
Why?
Or should we raise it?
I'm getting there.
Well, I personally think it's too low, but that's just my personal view. Well, again, it comes back to the market's a great ideal, but it fails. And I think there just has to be some basic standards that's decent for people. That's why I personally support it.
Next question. I don't know how tight we are on time. I'm supposed to wrap at 8:30, but we can go it a bit longer, I think.
Hi, sorry
Unless
to
they throw us out. Yes, sir.
A question following up on that point, really, about working hours and casualisation. Joe Cribb raised a point about business having a responsibility to have working hours that are family friendly. And that ties into a bigger debate about the casualisation of work, which we've seen in things like Ports of Auckland, which can be a boon for families in terms of flexible working, but when it's imposed on people and they don't have any control over their work, can also be a complete nightmare. So my question is, do we need to rethink how casualisation happens? Does it have to happen only when it works for families, only when it's demanded by families? And a question for Alan Freeth is, what's your view about that? If you thought casualisation was in the interests of Telstra Clear, would you impose that even if it might make life more difficult for families, or would your moral views make that impossible?
Look, I think that there is a big challenge for business and family-friendly hours and parental leave and things like that. I mean, the complications and the logistics in big organisations at least are not to be underestimated, and the degree to which corporations that support that type of thing go to support that, I think probably don't get acknowledged, because it just changes, you know, the nature of your business very quickly. I don't think you can have a business based on an employment contract, explicit or implicit, where it's about, it just suits me as a business to have you coming and going as you like. I mean, again, this is partly personal views. I think we have 1,230, I think, full-time employees. We have 800 contractors. And that's a nature of the way we run the business. And if someone wants to come off contract and come to us full-time, well, we'll look at that as well. So I personally, I think you've got to have a family, a sense of culture in an organisation. And so to me, I can't imagine what it would be like just to have people coming and going, or casual workers. But, you know, very happy to be and to promote flexibility. However that works, while also accepting we'll probably have some constraints around that. You know, we just have to have a number of people on the deck at any time, sort of thing.
We have time for one more question.
Oh.
So make it a good one. No pressure.
Oh, they got two. You got two.
She's standing up.
Sorry,
They've got microphones.
do you
now.
mind? I'll be very quick, so there might be time for two.
All right.
Very curious to know who here today actually is here representing business.
Hands up.
And I think that's probably
Half a
a
dozen.
little bit of a part of the problem. I think this conversation does need to be a little bit more equal, because I do believe that business has a significant amount to contribute. I work for quite a large corporation, but I come from the NGO sector, and these days I see amazing opportunities when the two partner and work together. So I would just encourage you all to reach out to the businesses, or even the people that you know in business, and start having these conversations. It's been a great discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And me, that was actually going to be one of my questions too. I had two.
Well, Hannah.
And it was, great minds think alike. Look, I work for Jigsaw, which is a child abuse prevention network. We've been looking at this whole business thing as well, and a lot of the discussion has been on the cost to business, and I think I'd like to also hear a bit more about the benefit to business as well, and looking at businesses as employers of people, and how you can do things that don't cost a lot of money to create a culture where children are looked after, protected. Everyone knows the children in their immediate network. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It could just be a matter of making your workplace more family friendly, or bringing in some family child only days, or things like that. And also flexible working hours, where you know that the staff member knows that they can take some time off with a sick child, and they'll probably work double to pay that back later. So it's kind of a reciprocal thing that doesn't necessarily result in a bottom line for shareholders, where they're going to say, oh, that's more money for children. It doesn't have to cost a lot.
Are we hung up at the moment in New Zealand? Either of you might be able to tell me, on not doing this because it might be a precedent, not allowing that person to do that kind of flexible arrangement because everybody will want. Do you know what I mean? We get panic-stricken about the slippery slope concept. Do you think that's an issue? Otherwise, why aren't we more relaxed about this stuff?
you do have to have some amount of trust in there and
Yes.
some clarity about expectations. People need that on both sides, but there's ample room for flexibility in there, and to still be able to deliver on what it is that Alan's talked about, of having enough people in the right place at the right time so the wheels can keep turning. If there is that sense of we're hung up on the precedent, then we need to actually be more transparent, and we can resolve that.
And is it precedent or inertia? Are we just not doing it because we haven't done it before?
Yeah.
Are we just not doing it because somebody didn't ask, or we just
Or
not?
somebody doesn't want to ask because they might be
or,
seen as, I know.
we just don't want to change something, or we just never thought, or we just didn't bother.
It might be a good idea. That somebody might have come up with a good new idea worth exploring.
A number of ideas tonight. Thank you so much to the panel and to the audience. A couple of things struck me. We are easily downcast, and our statistics are indeed bad. But as we've heard tonight, there are pockets of excellence. And I would like Every Child Counts to concentrate on some pockets of excellence and put them up on the website so that we can stop going, oh my God, that's an amazingly good idea. Why don't we know more about that? I mean, I do work in the media and I understand about if it bleeds, it leads. But there are other ways of getting out the good news, and I think we could all benefit. Another issue is the Netherlands, and we have another session on Thursday, July the 12th, at which we will have another 4 panellists. By that time, we will know more about the Netherlands, which is very interesting. It spends twice as much as New Zealand on child welfare, but half as much as the very big spending countries in the OECD. And it is as effective as they are. Between now and then, we have a social worker and some Every Child Counts investigation into what the Netherlands is doing that maybe we could emulate. And that will be an interesting part of the discussion during the 12th, so July the 12th. I would like you all to come back and drag some business leaders along with you. Thank you.